As requested by a commenter, in this video I'm going to explain how to possibly become Hawkeye in real life. Before I begin, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. As with most of these how-to videos on fantasy characters, the first step is a basic level of strength and cardio through weight training and cardiovascular exercise, which I've covered in more detail in previous videos. His main skill is marksmanship, specifically with a bow and arrow. The most common type of archery in the modern age seems to be target archery, where the archer stands still and fires at a set target. However, this does not fit the skills needed to be Hawkeye. You would need to train more like an ancient archer that used the bow as a tool for war. First is the choice of the bow itself, with there being 4 or 5 major ones: the longbow, the compound bow, the crossbow, and the recurve. There definitely are other styles, maybe from specific tribes, or things like a flat bow, but I'm not going to cover them in this video. In any case, the longbow is a quieter and more forgiving in terms of user error. However, its size makes it a disadvantage for someone like Hawkeye. The compound bow is a good choice, though some drawbacks could be that it's extremely expensive relative to other ones, and it's not very beginner friendly, and some can be awkwardly shaped, so it may not be the best one to start with. The crossbow is out as the goal is to be Hawkeye, not Daryl from The Walking Dead, but if you wanted to use it, it's a good option as well. That leaves the recurve bow, called that due to its tips curving away from the archer. It has its own set of flaws, such as being a little more difficult to learn than the longbow, needing more practice, and requiring more upper body strength to draw, but it's also cheaper, and it helps develop those muscles, and a smaller version like a horsebow allows for more effortless movement when running around. Other accessories to get include arrows, which may differ in weight and material, a quiver, an arm guard to protect your forearm, and also a guard to protect the fingers of the bow hand if you're using a traditional bow, and finger tabs / a ring depending on the drawing style you choose, whether it's primary draw, Mediterranean style, the Mongolian thumb draw, and whatever else. You may also want to buy a target to shoot at if you can't go to an archery range. Make sure you're in an area which has no people or animals that can be hurt. Now, after watching video footage of how Hawkeye fights, there are about 3 main skills you need to attain. First, accuracy even while moving. For this, you want to practice your skill standing still, working on your form, your grip, your muscles, with the goal to get consistent and accurate shots on the target. There are lots of great videos that go into more details on the different forms that exist. This will take some time, but once you get there, the next step in this section is to move slowly and fire. An interesting video from Charlie's Running Archery shows a slow approach where you start with small steps and increase the speed as you get consistent from the previous speed. He also uses an exercise where there's a target in the middle and you circle it while firing to get used to the movement while you shoot. And he recommends, at least in the beginning, to fire when stepping with the left foot if you're holding the bow with your left hand. You eventually want to ramp this up to running at high speeds and/or mounted archery, which is on horseback. Keep in mind the importance of the basic training that I mentioned in the beginning, as running while trying to shoot an arrow can make you exhausted, so by having that strong base, you're less likely to tire out quickly. You also want to practice behind cover, like a tree or a rock, and then quickly pop out and fire at the target. The second skill is speed shooting, and your speed will naturally increase as you practice, with the form becoming more fluid and efficient. However, there are some changes you can make to help improve your speed. One is holding a couple of arrows in your hand instead of keeping them all in the quiver. This is shown by Lars Anderson, and in reference to his videos, there is some pushback, not on his skills, but more so his claims of historical accuracy. And I'll link a video below that debunks some of his claims. In any case, you can hold the arrows in one hand, either the bow hand or the draw hand, though the latter looks more difficult. And another technique you can try out is preloading the arrows, where you keep them in your finger of the bow hand facing outwards and slightly adjusting after firing the first arrow. Charlie's Running Archery also shows a similar technique, which he says has cut down his speed to 1.2 seconds or so per shot. I recommend watching that video as well. Now I can guess there is going to be a transitionary period when trying these new techniques, so it isn't necessarily that it doesn't work if you fail, you may just not be used to it yet. And like in the previous skill, you can move around the target on the floor, constantly firing, with the goal being to reduce the intervals between each shot. The third is the adaptation to close quarter combat, as if the opponent is too close to the bow and arrow, it will have diminishing returns in terms of effectiveness and even be useless. A good example is from Lars's video, where he's sitting down and then fires at the two dummies across the table. While relatively fast for an archer, it is slow objectively. Now, if the enemies weren't expecting it, it could be effective, but if they were prepared for an attack at that distance, the archer could be injured or the table flipped over to block his vision, etc. It's kind of like throwing a spinning kick in a street fight. It's effective if it lands, but there are too many risks involved to be worth using. So you want to transition to a secondary weapon. I think a pole or a stick is a good option, as I mentioned in the Nightwing video. As it's easy to make one if needed, easily replaceable, you can just pop down to Home Depot and get a new pipe. And if it's a specific type of pole or stick, like a baseball bat, and you have a baseball, people aren't going to question why you're carrying it around with you. Alternatively, a knife is also a good option. Just be cautious of the legalities and make sure to train with a partner using foam knives, of course, to see if the knife techniques are effective. Finally is the importance of training consistently, and Hawkeye is a good example of this, such as when he has a conversation with Spider-Man on why he continues to train regardless of the time or scenario. He explains that if he doesn't, he might miss, and if he misses, all the opportunities that he passed up on would have been worthless. And it sounds like it might mentally break him. Regardless, the tenacity that he has is a great skill to practice, and you may like Miyamoto Musashi's 5 rings, as becoming on Hawkeye's level in terms of archery will be extremely difficult. I also want to mention that he is also a combatant without any weapons, and for that you may want to check out the video What Martial Arts Batman Would Use. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to show support to the channel, you can hit the join button for $2.99 a month.